Right now, millions of Americans on fixed incomes are struggling with rising costs that Social Security simply wasn't designed to handle. Your monthly benefit hasn't kept pace with grocery bills, medical expenses, or housing costs, and you felt it in your wallet every single day. But something significant is developing in Washington that could put real money back in your pocket. And the timing couldn't be more critical. We're talking about a potential $7,500 stimulus payment, not once, but twice, specifically targeting Social Security and SSDI recipients. This isn't speculation or rumor. There are actual proposals moving through channels right now, with specific payment dates already being discussed by lawmakers. The IRS infrastructure is in place. The precedent has been set from previous stimulus rounds, and the political pressure to help seniors and disabled Americans is mounting. In the next few minutes, I'm going to break down exactly what's happening, who qualifies, when these payments could arrive, and most importantly, what you need to do right now to ensure you don't miss out on a single dollar you're entitled to receive. Let's get straight to the facts. Let me be completely transparent with you right from the start. Understanding what's really happening with Social Security, SSDI, and these potential stimulus payments requires us to cut through a lot of noise and get to the actual facts. You've probably seen dozens of headlines promising miracle payments. And I know you're tired of clickbait that leads nowhere. That's exactly why we're going to spend the next several minutes going through this methodically, looking at what's actually on the table, what the real proposals are, and what you can genuinely expect in the coming months. The conversation about additional relief for Social Security and SSDI recipients didn't just appear out of nowhere. It's been building for years. But the pressure has intensified dramatically since the original pandemic stimulus payments ended. Think back to those COVID relief checks. The government demonstrated it could get money directly to Americans quickly and efficiently. The infrastructure exists, the direct deposit systems work. The IRS has your information if you're receiving Social Security or SSDI. That foundation is still in place, and lawmakers on both sides of the aisle know it. What's different now is that the economic landscape has shifted in ways that are hitting fixed-income Americans harder than almost any other group. When we talk about inflation, we're not just throwing around abstract economic terms. You know exactly what inflation means because you live it every single day. The gallon of milk that cost $3 2 years ago now costs $5. Your prescription medications have gone up. Your homeowner's insurance or rent has increased. Your utility bills have climbed. Every single expense category has moved in one direction up. While your Social Security check has tried to keep pace through cost of living adjustments that frankly haven't been adequate. The COLA increases sound good on paper. But when you're actually at the grocery store or the pharmacy, you know the math doesn't add up. This gap between what things actually cost and what your fixed income provides is the driving force behind the current push for additional stimulus relief. Now let's talk about where this $7,500 figure comes from and why it's being discussed as a two-time payment. Several proposals have been circulating through Congress, and while the exact details vary depending on which version you're looking at, the core concept remains consistent. The idea is to provide substantial one-time payments to Americans who are on Social Security retirement benefits, Social Security disability insurance, or supplemental security income. Some versions of these proposals call for a single larger payment, while others advocate for two separate payments spread across different quarters of the year. The reasoning behind splitting it into two payments rather than one lump sum has to do with both budgetary considerations and the practical reality that spreading payments out can help recipients manage their finances more effectively throughout the year. The $7,500 amount isn't random either. It's based on calculations about how much the average Social Security recipient has lost in purchasing power over the past several years, when you factor in real inflation versus the COA adjustments they've received. Think of it as an attempt to make up for the gap that's been growing between what your benefits should be covering and what they actually cover. Some economists and policy advocates have argued that this number should actually be higher, while others suggest it should be more targeted to those with the lowest incomes. But $7,500 has emerged as a figure that appears in multiple legislative proposals, which is why it keeps coming up in these discussions. The question everyone wants answered is when these payments might actually arrive. And this is where we need to be very careful about separating what's been proposed from what's been confirmed. As of right now, there is no signed legislation guaranteeing these payments. What we have are serious proposals being considered, debated, and refined. The dates being discussed in various versions of these proposals typically fall into two windows. The first potential payment window that's been mentioned ranges from late spring to early summer of this year, with some proposals specifically mentioning dates in May or June. The second payment window in proposals that call for two separate disbursements would come in the fall or early winter, potentially in October or November. These dates aren't set in stone, and they won't become official until actual legislation passes both the House and Senate and gets signed into law. Understanding the legislative process is crucial here because it helps you know what to watch for and when to take action. For any stimulus payment to happen, a bill must be introduced in Congress, go through committee hearings, get voted on by both the House of Representatives and the Senate, and then be signed by the President. Each of these steps takes time, and each one can involve changes to the original proposal. The amount might get adjusted, the eligibility criteria might get modified, the payment schedule might shift. This is why you'll see different news sources reporting slightly different information. They're often covering different versions of the proposals as they evolve through the legislative process. What makes this particular moment different from previous years when similar proposals were discussed is the unique combination of political and economic factors converging right now. Both major political parties are acutely aware that senior citizens vote at higher rates than almost any other demographic group. With major elections always on the horizon, there's significant political incentive to deliver tangible benefits to this voting bloc. Additionally, the economic data is undeniable. The statistics on senior poverty, on the number of Social Security recipients who are struggling to afford basic necessities, on the increasing number of older Americans who are having to return to work or rely on family support. All of this creates pressure for Congress to act. We're also seeing advocacy groups for seniors and disabled Americans becoming more vocal and organized in their demands for relief. The mechanics of how these payments would actually reach you are worth understanding because it affects how quickly you'd receive the money and what you need to do to prepare. If you're currently receiving Social Security or SSDI through direct deposit, that same bank account would be used for any stimulus payment. The IRS would work in coordination with the Social Security Administration to use the existing payment information they already have on file. This is exactly what happened with the previous stimulus checks during the pandemic. If you had your Social Security benefits directly deposited, your stimulus payment showed up the same way, usually within days of when the IRS began processing payments. If you receive your benefits through a Direct Express debit card, the stimulus would go there. If you still receive paper checks for your benefits, you'd receive a paper stimulus check as well, though these typically take longer to arrive because they have to be printed and mailed. One critical aspect that many people overlook is making sure your information with the Social Security Administration is current and accurate. If you've moved recently and haven't updated your address, if you've changed bank accounts and haven't notified Social Security, if there are any discrepancies in your records, now is the time to fix these issues. You don't want to be in a situation where a payment is approved and ready to go out, but it ends up delayed or sent to the wrong place because your information isn't up to date. You can update your information by calling Social Security, directly visiting a local Social Security office, or in many cases managing your information online through your My Social Security account on the official Social Security Administration website. Let's address the eligibility question head-on, because this is where a lot of confusion and misinformation tends to spread. Based on the proposals currently being discussed, eligibility would generally include anyone who is receiving Social Security retirement benefits, anyone receiving Social Security disability insurance, and anyone receiving supplemental security income. Some versions of the proposals include additional criteria, such as income caps, meaning that if your total income from all sources exceeds a certain threshold, you might receive a reduced payment or no payment at all. Other versions are more universal, proposing that all Social Security and SSDI recipients should receive the full amount regardless of other income. The income thresholds being discussed in means-ested versions typically range from around $50,000 for individuals to $100,000 for families, $1,000 for married couples filing jointly. Though again, these numbers can change as proposals move through Congress. It's also important to understand that receiving these stimulus payments would not affect your regular Social Security or SSDI benefits. This is additional money on top of your normal monthly payments. It wouldn't reduce your future benefits. It wouldn't change your eligibility for Medicare or Medicaid. And it wouldn't count against you for any other federal or state benefits you might be receiving. The payments are specifically designed to be supplemental relief, not replacement income. This was a key feature of the previous pandemic stimulus checks as well. They were separate from and in addition to any other benefits people were receiving. Now, let's talk about what you should be doing right now while these proposals are working their way through the legislative process. First and foremost, stay informed through reliable sources. The official Social Security Administration website, the IRS website, and reputable news organizations are your best sources for accurate, up-to-date information. Be extremely cautious about information you see on social media or in unsolicited emails, texts, or phone calls. Scammers absolutely love situations like this because they know people are eager for information and might let their guard down. The Social Security Administration and the IRS will never call you asking for your Social Security number, bank account information, or any kind of payment or fee to receive benefits you're entitled to. If someone contacts you claiming to be from these agencies and asks for this kind of information, it's a scam. Hang up, delete the email, ignore the text. Second, if you haven't already, create an account on the My Social Security portal. This secure online system lets you verify your earnings record, check your benefit amounts, update your contact information, and access important documents. Having this account set up before any payments are announced means you'll be able to quickly verify your information and make any necessary changes without having to wait on hold with Social Security's phone system, which can sometimes take hours. The process of creating an account is straightforward and can be done entirely online if you have basic documentation like your Social Security number, an email address, and the ability to verify your identity through their security questions or identity verification process. Third, consider how you would use a payment like this if it comes through. I'm not here to tell you how to spend your money. That's entirely your decision. But having a plan can help you maximize the benefit. Some people might need to use it immediately for pressing expenses like medical bills or home repairs. Others might want to put it aside as an emergency fund for unexpected costs. Some might use it to pay down debt, especially high-interest credit card debt that's been weighing on them. There's no wrong answer here, but thinking through your priorities now means you won't feel pressured to make quick decisions once the money arrives. The broader context of why these payments are being proposed also tells us something important about the future of Social Security and how our country is grappling with the challenges of an aging population living on fixed incomes. The reality is that the current Social Security system, while absolutely crucial and worth protecting, wasn't designed for the economic conditions we're facing today. People are living longer, which is wonderful, but it also means retirement savings need to stretch further. Healthcare costs are consuming a larger percentage of senior budgets than ever before. Housing costs in many parts of the country have become genuinely unaffordable for people on fixed incomes. These stimulus proposals are in many ways an acknowledgement that the existing system needs reinforcement, that the monthly benefit amounts and annual COA adjustments aren't sufficient on their own. Looking at the political timeline and the legislative calendar, the next several months are crucial. Budget discussions, debt ceiling negotiations, and various spending bills provide opportunities for these stimulus proposals to be attached or incorporated into larger pieces of legislation. Sometimes significant payments like this move forward as standalone bills, but more often they become part of broader economic packages or budget reconciliation bills. This means that even if you don't see a dedicated stimulus bill making headlines, the provisions could still be moving forward as part of other legislative efforts. Paying attention to these broader budget discussions can give you clues about whether and when relief might be coming. The economic arguments supporting these payments go beyond just helping individuals, though that's obviously the primary goal. When Social Security and SSDI recipients receive additional funds, that money gets spent quickly and locally. It goes to grocery stores, pharmacies, utility companies, local businesses. This injection of spending power into communities actually provides an economic stimulus effect that benefits everyone. Economists call this the multiplier effect. Every dollar given to people who will spend it immediately generates additional economic activity. For small towns and rural areas where Social Security checks represent a significant portion of the local economy, these kinds of payments can make a real difference, not just for individual recipients, but for entire communities. We should also acknowledge the different perspectives and debates happening around these proposals, because understanding the full picture helps you interpret the news you're seeing and hearing. Supporters argue that these payments are not only morally right but economically sound, that they address a genuine crisis of affordability for millions of Americans, and that the government has both the means and the responsibility to provide this relief. Critics raise concerns about the cost, about how these payments would be funded, about whether they might contribute to inflation, and about whether more targeted approaches might be more appropriate. These are legitimate debates that will play out in the legislative process. And the final version of any stimulus package, if it passes, will likely reflect compromises between these different viewpoints. As we move forward through the year, there will be key moments to watch for. Committee hearings where these proposals are discussed, floor votes in the House or Senate, presidential statements about support for or opposition to various forms of relief, budget proposals that do or don't include funds for these payments. Following these developments doesn't mean you need to watch C-SPAN all day, but checking in on reliable news sources regularly and understanding what to look for can help you separate real progress from speculation. When something significant happens, when a bill actually passes a committee, when a floor vote is scheduled, when the president signs something into law, that's when you'll know it's time to pay very close attention to the specific details about amounts, dates, and eligibility.